built up a rather healthy collection of designer belts, and I've got 4 in my collection that I'm going to talk you through today. Now, in the scheme of all things designer belts sit at the lower end of the price spectrum. Their price tags are probably on par with, say, sunglasses or card holders, but there isn't much that you can buy from a luxury brand that is cheaper than a designer belt. I guess there's always a scrunchie or a hair clip, but then why? And while we're talking about price, belts don't necessarily represent good value for money. While they're about a fifth or a sixth of the price tag of a designer handbag, the materials that are used to make a belt don't necessarily equate to, say, a fifth or a sixth of the materials used to make a handbag. You're really just buying into the designer house and trying to get a little piece of the action. Arguably, the hardware might represent some value, but at the end of the day, it's just a gold-colored piece of metal. Like a good quality piece of metal, but not really. However, there's no denying that belts wield this magical power when it comes to styling. And I like to think of belts as part of the holy trinity when it comes to accessorizing. First you've got your bag, then you've got your shoes, and then you've got your belt. And with that final element, you're really taking your outfit to the next level, and you can make the most basic outfits look so dressy. Pretty much every designer house has its own version of the logo belt, and so you are spoiled for choice. I have built up a rather healthy collection of designer belts, and I've got 4 in my collection that I'm going to talk you through today. At this point in time, I truly feel like I have reached belt peace. I cannot think of another belt that I'd like to add to my collection right now. And if anything, I could probably go with one less, but I don't want to get rid of any of them right now, so don't make me choose. In today's video, as I talk you through each of the belts, I thought I would talk you through how I've been enjoying styling them, the price of each of them, and at the very end of the video, I will share with you my favorite belts. The way in which I thought I would attack this video is I would start off with the very first designer belt that I added to my wardrobe and then move right along to my newest addition. So let's get started. The very first designer belt that I ever added to my collection is the very famous Gucci Marmont belt. And this belt, I remember, was so big about 7 to 8 years ago. Now, I received this as a really generous gift from my husband about 5 to 6 years ago, probably towards the tail end of the peak of its popularity, but I love it so much. I still love it. I still wear it. I consider this to be a very classic belt, and I know that many of you have bought it recently and you've really enjoyed this addition in your wardrobe as well. Now, I have a dedicated video about the Gucci belt and the exact one that I went for because I did a lot of research before I decided to settle for this one. So you can go and watch that. But if you can't be bothered, then I will very kindly summarize the points in that video. And that is, I actually have the men's version of this belt because I prefer the width of this one. I have the 3cm width. I find that it works better on my petite frame. And I also had additional holes punched into the belt so that I have the ability to wear it both as a waist belt as well as a hip belt. And I have absolutely zero regrets of doing that. Although I remember at the time when I paid a visit to the cobbler, I did almost feel like I was going to have a heart attack as they were punching the holes in, but they did a stellar job. The belt that I chose is a chocolate brown leather, and it has the antique gold hardware. There is a little bit of wear now on the hardware. I don't know if that's coming across. It has aged a little bit over the last 5.5 years that I've had it, but I think it just adds to the character of the belt. I store it really carefully in a drawer. It's got its own little section, and yeah, it's held up really, really well. The leather is incredible quality. It's thick, it's not too stiff as well. It's just a really good quality calf skin. And so in terms of styling capabilities, I do feel like whenever I wear this belt, it really takes my outfits to the next level in terms of the dressy stakes. I think that's the case with all of my belts actually, that they just make my outfits look really, really quite dressy. The current retail price for this belt is 740 Australian dollars. That's not the price that was paid at the time that the belt was purchased 5 or 6 years ago. The price increases are somewhat incredible, but they are not unique to just Gucci. And because this was my only designer belt for the longest time, the cost per wear of this belt has really come down, and so it has really been a heavily relied on accessory that I've really enjoyed in my wardrobe. The next designer belt that I added to my wardrobe is this Loewe signature logo belt. And this one is considerably a lot lighter than my Gucci belt, but that probably comes down to the hardware. The hardware on this one is much more delicate than, say, the Gucci buckle, which feels a lot more robust and it feels like it's really, really good quality. This one feels a little bit on the plasticky side, I must say. Now, the unique nature about Loewe belts, particularly their signature logo belt, is that they're actually reversible. On one side, there's the black leather, but on the other side, there's the navy leather. And so it's really nice to have different options to play with. I don't know whether this particular color combination is available now. I think that it's a black and a tan, but regardless, having the two different leather colors available means that you've got additional styling options, and I really like having that up my sleeve. And so it's simply a matter of just switching out the buckle and switching it to the other side. Now, I've got a size 8 in this belt, and it comes with just the 3 holes here. This belt I like wearing as a waist belt, and I think that because the logo is so dainty and so feminine, I do like wearing this with more feminine pieces like knit dresses and skirts, but I also love how it looks with just a pair of denim shorts as well. Now, I'm going to bring this up a little bit closer because this belt is about 3 years old now, and I don't know whether you can notice any of the tarnishing on the metal. It has discolored somewhat, and I do store the belt quite carefully in my drawer. I just sort of coil it up. It sits in the drawer out of direct sunlight, but that just goes to show that the quality of the metal on the Loewe belt isn't as high quality as the other metals that I've got, which did take me a little bit by surprise considering the craftsmanship that they use on their bags. I'm quite impressed with their leather, but the metal hardware not so much. This belt retails for 660 Australian dollars, and I think because you get 2 belts for the price of one, I do think that it represents pretty good value for money when it comes to designer belts anyway. I have really enjoyed wearing this one, and I get probably more compliments about this belt than I do the Gucci belt because I think the logo is just so beautiful. But yeah, when it comes to quality, I do think that the Gucci one wins out there. The next designer belt that I have in my wardrobe that I added in chronological order is this somewhat deceptively minimal looking piece of leather here. This is from Isabel Marant, and this is their Lecce belt, which is effectively just a strip of leather with these pointy ends on either side, but it's got this slit here which you use to fasten the belt, and it actually fastens into this wraparound belt detail, which looks far from simple, and it's really quite a beautiful closure. The way that you tie the belt, which I did have to Google before I fastened it for the first time, is that you simply insert one side of the belt through the slit, you thread it through, you go underneath, and then you slot it through like so, just like a knot. I mean, obviously it's a lot easier when it's actually on my person, but the result is a really beautiful bow detail. And I really love using this belt to cinch in my blazers in particular, as well as my coats. I have seen a lot of people wear this with denim and trousers, and I did do quite a bit of that in the beginning. I think with the intricate bow detail, which is quite prominent, particularly because I'm shorter than the average person, I think that it looks much better higher waisted. And it's such a deceptively simple design, but the result is anything but. It's just this beautiful bow detail. What I really love about this belt as well is that it is free from logos. It is just completely plain. It's one of those if you know, you know type situations. And while it's rather simple, I find that the bow detail just adds a little bit of something. Another good thing about this belt is the price tag. This one retails at a rather reasonable price in the scheme of designer belts. It's 175 Australian dollars, which, you know, represents a quarter of the price for some of the belts that I have in my wardrobe. And I know that it's just a strip of leather, but it's the design that really sells it for me. And it's the belt that I have worn most to work recently as well, because I like that it's free of logos, free of bling, but it just gives that polish and that dressiness that I like to add to my outfits for work. If you're looking to add your very first designer belt to your collection, then I would highly recommend that you check out this one. This one to me ticks all of the boxes, and it's just a beautiful belt. And the last belt that I have to talk you through, but certainly not the least, is the newest belt to my collection, and that is the Celine Triomphe belt that I recently unboxed in my recent favourites video that I uploaded a couple of weeks ago. Now, this belt is by far the most blingy and the most expensive belt that I've ever added. This one retails for $940, and I paid $940 for it at the Celine boutique. This one I have tried on many times, and I just decided to just bite the bullet when I visited the store a couple of weeks ago, but it has been on my radar for the past couple of years. I remember I was tossing up between the tan version, and then I ultimately decided to go for the black. I also tried their canvas version as well, and I was also tossing up between the thinner version of the belt, but I went for the medium size, which is the 2.5 centimeter width belt, because I figured that it would work better and it would be more versatile to be worn as both a hip and a waist belt if it was just a little bit thicker. Now, the leather on this belt is a little bit shinier in comparison to, say, my Loewe and my Gucci belts. As you can see there's a bit of a sheen on top, and it's also a little bit thicker as well, and a little bit stiffer, which is noticeable. It is a little bit thick when you're threading the belt through to fasten it. It feels like it's a little bit tight, and I'm sure that that will loosen with more wear. I have worn this quite a bit already since I bought it. I do like how it looks with just denim shorts in the most casual of looks, and I also like how it looks with jeans as well. I haven't had a chance to wear this over blazers or jackets yet. I don't know whether I will wear the belt like that. I think that I'll probably reserve that for my Isabel Marant belt, but you know, I haven't tried yet, so never say never. The hardware of the belt as well, I haven't worn it that much, and there are already some tiny little marks, a few, not scratches, I can't quite describe what they are, just little marks of when my jacket has rubbed on the belt. I'm not sure how to care for it actually, and so if you have this belt and you know how to care for it, then I would love to hear your tips, because I haven't yet researched how to do it. I'm sure there's an easy fix, but I just haven't really turned my mind to it yet. The fact that it's a new kid on the block means that I'm really excited about this belt, and I'm really excited to see the styling capability. I've really only had a little bit of a dabble, and so I still feel like that there is a lot to learn and get to know about this belt. And so yeah, this is the newest and likely the last designer belt that I will add to my wardrobe. Now, in comparing all three of the designer logo belts that I have, I will leave the Isabel Marant belt out of this comparison just because it's a little bit too different. I think when it comes to hardware, the Gucci Marmont belt is the best by far. This logo is really quite weighty. It has aged, but it is what you would expect of a belt that's 5 to 6 years old. If anything, it's still in better nick than my Loewe belt, which is only half of its age. This Loewe belt I would put down the bottom when it comes to quality. I think the metal is quite cheap and plasticky, and while the logo is really delicate and really quite intricate, I do think that it really lets itself down because the metallic hardware is just not top quality. And then the Celine belt obviously sits in the middle there. Again, I think that the Gucci belt is the best when it comes to the leather. Maybe it's due to the fact that I've had it for 5 to 6 years, and so the leather has really softened, and so getting it on and off is really quite easy. Whereas the newest belt to my collection, the Celine belt, is really quite stiff with the leather as well. And it's quite thick and plushy, which I'm sure will go down as I wear it more. The Loewe belt and the Gucci belt are largely the same when it comes to the leather, the same sort of matte calf skin finish, but the Gucci belt by far is on top when it comes to leather quality for me. I think that this is probably not a like for like situation as well, because this has more of a sheen to it. And so yeah, those are my thoughts on quality. When it comes to picking my favorites out of all of the belts in my collection, I think this is a really tough one, because obviously I'm most excited about my Celine belt because it's the newest one in my collection. And if you know me, then I'm a Celine girl through and through. I have a heap of Celine bags in my collection because they're my favorite designer when it comes to bags. But then there's so much sentimentality in the Gucci belt because it was a gift from my husband. It was my very first designer belt. It was a really big deal when I just got this one as well, because it just felt like such an extravagant gift, and I have worn it so much. I haven't babied it either, and I've really made a lot of use out of it. And it's a belt that I know that I've encouraged a lot of people to buy, and a lot of you feel the same way about it as well, because it's just a very, very special designer piece. I think that if I was forced to choose just the one belt to keep forever and get rid of the rest, which is somewhat painful because I love all of my belts, I think that I would ultimately choose my Gucci belt. I think this one is the one that I would hang on to, and it just so happens to be the one that, you know, I got first as well. And then if you allow me a second belt to add to my wardrobe, it would probably be the Isabel Marant belt, because this one, although it's quite simple, this one wields so much styling power, and it's just so different with the bow fastening. I think that it's a really beautiful belt. And so yeah, the two belts that I would include in my shortlist are these ones here. Surprise, surprise. So we come to the end of my designer belt comparison, guys, and I hope that you found this video to be useful, particularly if you're in the market for your first designer belt, or you're just interested to hear my perspective on the various designer belts that I have in my collection. If you have any questions, then pop them in the comment section below and I will endeavour to answer them as soon as I can. If you like this video, then be sure to hit that thumbs up button so that I know that you did, and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!